You. So everyone's so
This,
nice. Thank you.
oh, it's a tremendous pleasure and honor, Matt. I have had you in my ear all over the country, listening to your book multiple times, grocery shopping, walking the dog. Just I went over it and over it because the first time that I listened to it, and I want to thank you for writing it the way that you did.
Thank
It helped me feel confident in my mission and approach to the startup that I am building because you left out and cut through any corporate bullshit terminology, brought the human aspect into it. And when when I heard data versus gut, because I had been struggling with that aspect with very credible resources, but who kept sending me out into the world and saying, well, bring back data. And I kept saying, but there isn't because I'm forging a path that doesn't exist. So I'm telling you, I know, I could feel it. It needs to be done. And then add to it, the chapter 9 was is my favorite, and I love the whole book start to finish, but chapter 9 has been one of those that I have had on replay and listened. And I
And
am
chapter nine
actually,
has a story of Laurie Segal and Vicky, who turned down the job. I did that on purpose, by the way. I wanted to end where I began, female entrepreneurs.
well,
Like,
and the whole lobster shell
yeah, I
that's
love the lobster.
I
Yeah, go ahead.
left my shell. My
But you know what I
shell's
love about
been
this conversation is my point about engineering. It was on purpose. Like, I don't want to preach people's faith. When you lecture people about this, that, or female entrepreneur, like people don't want to hear it. I wanted to show. Let me show you amazing women doing
it
amazing
did.
things who
And the
inspire.
yes, and the demonstration of it, including Bobby Brown's approach to making sure and understanding and appreciating what she was interested in and what she did well and where she found the plugs for those areas, as well as then the necklace with the date of when she knew her non-compete was over and she could move on with her next idea. So I mean, it's just the whole book. The reason I also continued to go back to it, and I do have a question, but the reason I kept going back over it is because it's so full of valuable advice in real time, in real life, for real people who are building businesses, whether you're on your own or partnerships. It has so much that you need to listen or read it more than once in order to gather all of these helpful suggestions and insights. And the part where I am trying to figure out right now, because the mission that I'm on, I have a podcast and an app, and its mission is to bring as many veterans as quickly as possible into the power utility industry. And we're doing it with an unusual format on the podcast, is because it's important and it needs momentum as quickly as possible. I keep vacillating between the self-funding that I'm doing right now versus looking for investors or a partner to help really fuel and accelerate it so that it hits its best service level as quickly as possible, which is possible within a very short amount of time. We're gaining traction, but I'd like to see it go as quickly as possible so we get to our veterans and pull them into the industry at an accelerated rate. So what would you advise in regards to investment, continue as I'm going, partnership? Where do you find that where you're like, you know what, this is where I need to go in order to get to the goal?
Well, let me ask you back to you. What do you think is the unlock for distribution for reaching more people, right? Because that's what justifies an investment. What do you think are the next three moves that are going to make more people hear that podcast?
As much social media and the release of the app, which will connect everyone quickly. So it's the media that needs to be just pounded so that we get the word out, because the veteran community is not aware of the very lucrative and secure career paths, which are endless in the power utility industry. And that's why the format has each episode has a different co-host who is an influencer, who is a high-ranking veteran with who is an author, a speaker, has their own social media following. And so trying to pull from all different areas to get the message out.
I'm asking only because I don't think money necessarily is anyone building a podcast, anyone on here knows this. Like, you got to keep laddering up to bigger and bigger guests that enable you to tap into their audiences, right? And I don't think money or partnership necessarily do those things for you. It's really just about getting the next big name that gets you closer to the next big big name. So why don't we do two things together? I don't talk about this publicly a lot, but I have a military business. I'm very much Team USA, undyingly devoted to this country and to our service members. And so if you would like, I would come on your podcast, but then by coming on your podcast, I now get to know you. And two, I'm pretty sure I could land a very significant high level military guest on your podcast. These interactions are what you need, not money. You need to get people who believe and care about you, and then we lean into you, and it's all just one big escalation. So hopefully my little Shark Tank criteria, whatever it is I represent in the universe, you'll now use that as a hustle to get the next person. When you go to Cuba, and like, well, Higgins did you this show. I mean, now you don't like veterans. What's the matter with you? Yeah, well, Cuban's amazing, but Cuban is amazing, right? Like, is so generous. I can never even come close to what he does for other people, but use names to escalate next. So why don't we start there? I'll come on your podcast if you'd like me to, and then I will help you identify a very senior military guest, and we'll just get to know each other.